Good morning. I am John Wilkins. And before we get going, I just want to say this is my fourth podcast, so I'm working on it, okay? This is my fourth one. But anyway, I'm John Wilkins. A lot of people call me the core coach. I travel all over the country and I teach inner core strength, regular core strength, and how it applies to athletics and even regular people. So today I got another guest, one of my good guys here, been training with me for a while, Ryan Burton. And one of the things that comes to mind when I talk about Ryan Burton is not just his, what we do here athletically, is also spiritually. We have in-depth conversations about our Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And he's got a couple tattoos that he put on for, to honor God. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan real quick. He'll tell you who he is, and we'll get started.
Yep, so I'm Ryan. I'm a senior at St. Joseph's Regional High School, and I'm 18 years old. I'm committed to Virginia Tech for wrestling, and excited to be here, being up with John for 5 years almost, pretty much.
Yeah,
5 years, so yep, excited.
All right, so the first question is, when you came to me, how did you hear about me, and what was like your expectations?
Yeah, so we came during, training was like limited. It was during the COVID quarantine, everything was shutting down, can't go in anywhere. So we're looking for training opportunities, and we're young, we're, trying to get better. None of us were really good at wrestling or anything. So we're looking around, and my friend Anthony, his mom, she's looking around everywhere, and we found you. And it was outside, started outside, so came here, and then once we started, we knew it was like, this is going to get us to the next level.
Yeah. We were outside too.
Yeah.
Oh. I made a big wooden cage outside with some straps and some dumbbells and these blocks, and we just got after it.
Yeah, when we first came out, it was like just a wooden shed almost. We were like just getting to work every day. So.
Now, did you know at that point that you wanted to be like a high level athlete?
No, I feel like it was more like just trying to test the waters. I still played football at the time, so it was just hard to see where I was gonna go. But I think eventually it brought me to the right spot, coming with you and then training, figured out that wrestling's going to be the path, and then that's the path I'm going to ride with.
Yeah. And did you feel like for younger kids, when kind of would you make that commitment to wrestle full year? Because you got to wrestle full year.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys, unless they're super, super athletic and blessed, you can't play 3 sports because your opponent is wrestling the whole time.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part, I fell in love with football early. That was what I played my whole life. That was the sport that I had the most fun in. And when you're looking at these other guys that are so much talent, so much physically blessed, and you don't have that, you got to kind of make that decision within yourself and figure out that, wrestling is one of those sports where no matter what body type you are, you can dominate. Right. So I think that's the decision you have to make, and if you want to go to the next level, that's what you're going to have to do.
Mm-hmm. It's like football, right? So there's no maybe 1 or 2 guys that are 5'8" inside linebackers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to happen.
No.
You don't see a 5'4" defensive tackle or a center,
Yeah.
So it does. I like the sport. I didn't wrestle. My kids wrestled.
Yeah.
But I didn't wrestle. But I could see where the regular person of all shapes and sizes could fit in it. You just got to have some heart.
Yeah.
And you got to want to get in that wrestling room and train,
It's like a style game, wrestling. You have one weight class, there's kids that are coming in 6 foot skinny, and then you have the little 5'8" jack kid, and depending on how you train, that's how you're going to win or not.
Yeah. And it's like boxing too. Boxing is, you have to fit in a weight class, but you could have difference in heights.
Yeah.
It's not like a guy is 5'4" and he's 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Boxing a guy who's 6'3", who's 150 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I like the sport for that reason, and the sport's growing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people. I didn't even realize. I've been traveling the country. I've been in 30 universities. We're at the Olympic Training Center, mixed in with the combat fighting because they use wrestling also.
Yeah.
But there's it's one of the fastest growing sports, and amongst the girls too.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think, especially college level now with the recruiting and the money opportunities, I think that's the biggest part, the NIL opportunities. And it's just like grown throughout, not only in our country, but now you look at the world level, Japan, those guys, they're all just like, it's just growing all around the world.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The other thing, so I wanted to tell everybody, like, when did you start like winning tournaments? Like right around what age?
Yeah. When I was young, we would travel all around. Like it was like the same thing I'm doing now, but I was like 8, 9 years old, and we had like a little group in New York. We were just going around dominating everyone, and I think that kind of started me off strong with the love of the sport. And then I had like a little mountain to hump, like go over. I was 12, 13 years old. I gained a lot of weight and I wasn't growing, and all these kids around me were hitting puberty, so I started losing a lot, and I think that was like the lowest point of my wrestling career. I was losing like every match pretty much, and these kids were like 14, 15, already starting puberty, and I'm like, these kids are just like grown men already. So I think that was the hardest part. And then going into 8th grade, freshman year, I started hitting puberty. I grew like 6, 7 inches and stayed the same weight. Then I started getting the muscle, and then even freshman year, I took a lot of losses. Sophomore year, I started figuring it out, and then I think junior year was just dominating.
Yeah.
So,
now, was that the time you stopped all other sports and just wrestled? Like what?
Yeah.
Was that 9th grade?
Yeah, 9th grade. I played football freshman year.
Okay.
And then sophomore year, I just was wrestling from then. And I think from that year, sophomore year was my first year just wrestling, to junior year, that was my biggest jump in wrestling.
All right.
I think it goes to show, like, you know, the job in football, wrestling all year round, I'm competing with these guys, and I started dominating.
Yeah, yeah. So, so what have you won so far? Like, what are the things that, what are some of the tournaments?
Yeah, so I went to a lot of national tournaments this past 2 years. I won Super 32. I won the Fargo Nationals out in North Dakota. I won Beast of the East in Delaware. I won Escape the Rock in Council Rock, PA. I just won it again this past weekend. So that's 2-time. And then I won Powerade, which is out in PA too, and all these national tournaments. And then New Jersey States was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was main winnings.
Yeah. Do you feel like winning, you learn more lessons winning or learn more lessons losing?
Yeah.
And what would you say you're going to talk about both?
Yeah.
So talk about winning first, and then what was the match that you feel like you've learned the most in?
Yeah.
And we'll do with the loss too.
Okay. Yeah, so with the winning, I started before my junior year in that off season. I won Super 32. That was my first big tournament win. And, you start building momentum, the confidence. So I think that when you're winning and you're building that momentum, it's like hard to stop you, and you start feeling like invincible. So I'm winning all these tournaments, and I keep going, I keep winning. I'm training hard. Everything's just flowing. So I think definitely the confidence level with the winning, and that momentum, that helped me a lot in my beginning stages of winning. And then, with the loss.
So the Super 32 was when you first felt that you were building momentum, and I could do this. I could be, I could be state champion. I could be world champion. I could be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't compete for a while before Super 32, so we were just training. Like I was training here. I was going to wrestling practice every day, and I think, I wasn't sure what I had. And then going to that tournament and dominating, I was like, wow, this is going to be awesome. And I think the sky's the limit from here.
Yeah, yeah. And then what about losing? Like we all lose,
Yeah, that's part of it.
And we all gain a lot from losing.
Yeah. So when you're winning, like I said, the momentum, you're feeling invincible, then you take that one loss and you're like, then all the negative thoughts start coming in. I think that's the hardest part is, you're finding that groove and then something bad happens. And you're like, all right, did I do something wrong? Did I not train hard enough? Did I not put enough work, not eat right, whatever it is? And you start getting those doubts. And I think that's the hardest part about losing is you don't know how to get back into that groove.
Right.
And, it's hard to get back in there. And I think, most of the time it's just, bad match. Something happens, but you start overthinking, and to avoid that overthinking, you just got to keep working, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Nutrition.
Yeah.
Right? So one of my big things with wrestling, because I now see wrestling coaches, and sometimes they're so heavy. I mean, every sport's the same, but we're talking about wrestling today. Sometimes they're so heavy. I know he did not wrestle at that weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all this cutting and cutting and cutting. And I used to compete in bodybuilding. I used to be American National Natural Bodybuilding Conference.
Yeah.
And one thing that I learned when I had to come down from a certain weight to a certain, it was tough.
Yeah.
You look flat. Yeah, your muscles weren't hydrated. I just was doing way too much work.
Yeah.
So then I said, in my off season, I'm only going to stay a few pounds over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I compete or when I get on stage, I've only done a little bit of dieting, not severe dieting.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the same with wrestling, but then you screw your metabolism up, you know?
That's like the next big category you go into. You're talking about wrestling and training, but the nutrition is just as important. And it's hard to like find that because especially your body, like, you need all that fuel, but it's hard when you're trying to cut weight. So I think that's the hardest part for me is the nutrition. And, you got to find how much water you need to drink during the day, what proteins you need, what carbs you need.
Yep.
And it's hard because the proteins and carbs are heavy.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get down in weight, and it's like you can't sacrifice gaining that
Right.
much weight. So I think that's the most important part. And I think getting on a good nutrition plan will definitely help. And, like you said, you were only a few pounds over what you were wrestling. So I think if you're going to try to cut that much weight, I think you should reevaluate and maybe go up a higher weight and feel better, feel stronger.
But we're cutting why? Because we can't win that
Yeah,
weight
that's
class. You know what I
ducking
mean?
people,
So
whatever it is,
wouldn't it behoove you to actually be closer to that weight and just eat right?
Yeah, and feel good.
Because what happens is, what I see is you're eating on
Yeah.
and then you're completely off.
Yeah.
Well, what if you were on?
The whole time.
Not strict like you were, competing,
Yeah.
but enough where you were just eating healthy.
Yeah.
Building that metabolism up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Using the calories that you can't go in the wrestling room and tell me you gained 20 pounds. You didn't stop wrestling.
Yeah.
So what were you doing?
Yeah.
You had to be eating. You know what I mean? So if you ate that much to put on that much weight, then we got a problem.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. And there's a lot of like discipline factors that come into it.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of kids after they're cutting weight, the food always tastes better after cutting weight.
Yeah.
So these kids are just pounding food. You gain like 7 pounds in just one dinner.
Yeah.
So that's like the hardest part. Yeah. You're feasting out. Yeah. And you got the holidays mid-season. It's like go to Thanksgiving dinner. But yeah, so I think discipline's definitely the biggest factor there. And if you want to feel good and wrestle good, at your strongest weight, I think you got to bump up.
You got to
that
be
weight.
near the weight
Yeah,
too. I mean, you can't
yeah.
wrestle at 20 pounds heavier, drop weight, and expect your brain not to be functioning differently.
Yeah.
You're dehydrated. We're more susceptible for tearing muscles and pulling muscles, and not to mention the mental part of it. I'm out here and I'm like half asleep.
Yeah, you're suffering.
Yeah.
It's just like you can't compete at the highest level when you're suffering. And I think that's what separates the two people. Like, you got the guy that's cutting weight. He's not going to be able to compete with the guy that is doing everything right, not cutting that much weight. He's just going to mop the floor with you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I have a couple questions here. You have anything?
No.
No. Some of the things that we do in this room, and I mentioned earlier, is the inner core.
Yeah.
The inner core is like a corset, like a cylinder all the way around your spine. And those muscles are small, right?
Yeah.
But they're easily turned off and turned on. We can activate those if we do things right.
Yeah.
But we can also miss them by lifting heavy and strong without bringing that foundation with us.
Yeah.
And the foundation of the body is critical because that helps with injury, that helps with posture, that helps with stability and balance and push off. And I competed, so I was the big deadlifter, squatter. Then I pulled my back one time and I was like, yo, I didn't like it in the first place, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I hated it. I didn't start lifting until I was about to go to college.
Yeah.
I was like, I look in the weight room, I see these guys lifting all this big weight. I'm like, no way, I'm the best guy out there anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then I knew I needed some fitness, I needed some kind of training. So I went more towards, because I ran track also, and track training was to help you with speed. And I just felt like when I came through that hole, I still had that power.
Yeah.
When I accelerated off of you, weren't going to catch me.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then my mind took me there for 30 years, because I've been training for 30 years. And it took me there, and I've been able to create these unbelievable humans from the core training.
Yeah.
And it comes from a plank, right?
Yeah.
So all of our training, what has our training had done for you? Like, what do you feel like actual movements on a mat?
Yeah, I think, since I was coming here, like, you see those guys, like you said, they're lifting in the weight room, they're building on that bulky muscle, they're losing all their flexibility. And I think coming here, I realized the muscle and motion factor is so much bigger than, the bulky strength and being strong in positions, especially with wrestling. It's so many movements and your body's like bending all different positions. So being able to be strong in those positions, and I think since I came here, being in the plank positions, my core and everything, I'm strong in every position. And where guys that are just lifting, they can't compete on the mat because I'm just stronger than them in every position. And I think that lean muscle that we put on in here with the core and everything, I'm stronger than these guys that look all jacked up. And I don't really, I'm more of like a lanky, I still have muscle, but not as bulky as these guys. I'm
Right. Because if you did, you'd blow out of your weight class anyway. You'd be around 190, 215 somewhere.
So we're putting on these lean muscle, and I think that's the biggest thing I noticed was I'm not getting like noticeably jacked and all, slow and bulky, but I'm getting faster and stronger in those positions, and it's making me more flexible and just dominating those kids.
Yeah, and that's unbelievable. And the hand grip, right?
Yeah.
I've watched a match. I think it was the States last year. You beat the guy, and I said to myself, after he walked off, I knew he was going to turn and look at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he made his way back later. You told me, he asked you, like, how'd you get so strong?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you wrapped onto him, he was just like, yo, my blood supply got cut off. Now, if I'm wrestling and somebody cuts my blood supply off, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, even when I'm training now in high school, I'm training with these coaches and I'm locking the wrist control and they start calling my hands the iron clamps.
Yes.
Like it's just like you don't let go. You know, it's like impossible.
Yeah.
That's what we work on here. Everything's just the grip, all the little muscles that nobody else has.
Yeah. Awesome. So, first question, all right? It's kind of you can answer it. It doesn't have to be so broad. What inspired you to start wrestling? And how has your journey in the sport shaped you both as an athlete and person?
Yeah, so growing up, born in the city, Staten Island, my parents, they didn't know about wrestling. It was my dad played baseball and football. My mom was softball. So I didn't really have like a wrestling background. Like you see these guys, their dads were NCAA champs. They have like this inspiration to wrestle. And I think we moved up to Menacing Valley, New York, and they're known for wrestling. So they have a really good public school team. They're winning states. They have guys, huge guys wrestling. And
who's out in there? You got
so they had Zach Ryder. He graduated. He went to Penn State. PJ Duke's there now. These are all my boys. We talk a lot and we're friends. And then they had guys like Mike Rachopi.
And both of those guys been on my bar.
Yeah. They both train here. They both committed to Penn State, which is one of the best teams in the country. And you got the older guys like Mike Rachopi. He was a state champ. He kind of paved the way for Menacing wrestling. And they have a long history of good wrestlers. But I didn't really know about it. I was just going there because my parents moved there, going to school there. And my older sister was friends with this kid, AJ Friccione, who's actually also at Penn State. He wrestled too. And his dad was, telling my parents, he was like, you got to get him into wrestling. You got to get him into wrestling. So they tried Menacing team, and, I started being good at it. I was like beating kids up, and then there was this.
You think the football helped you with that?
Yeah, I think, having that athletic background was definitely helping the wrestling. And, I was really like just a tough kid. Like I wasn't like one of those like, crybabies. Like I just put my head down and work. And so they saw that in the room. I didn't really know about club wrestling either. So my friend, Zach Ryder, ended up being my best friend. So his basement was a wrestling mat. It was like a dungeon. So they called it the Underground was the club. And at first, it was like when I first got there, my first practice, I was the new guy, It was just like more like fighting. It was like a little fight club for kids in the basement. And it wasn't a lot of technique, but I think that's what kind of helped us all because now we're all going to the next level, D1. I think we had, that mindset of just fighting. Like it was just like you're just fighting and we're wrestling. Everyone's fighting. You're getting kids bleeding. Kids, the parents, parents are in there just like, beat them up. And that's kind of the foundation, I think, where it was. And that just ever since then, we all grew up. We were going out to national tournaments together, and then we all just started dominating.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Second question. Can you walk us through like a typical training week? What does the preparation look like leading up to a match? Yeah.
So, in the off season when we would have a tournament on the weekend, I'm coming to you. So, typical week it would be 6 days of wrestling. It would be, if I'm wrestling Saturday, Sunday. There's only 5 days in the week, so I'm going to wrestle every day.
Yeah.
And based on how the training's going or, how my body's feeling, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday hard. And I'll probably come here 2 days a week, 3 days a week, just keeping that muscle up.
And just so you know, this kid travels over an hour to get to me. I have another kid that travels from Pennsylvania. He's about 2 hours. And another kid from Long Island, about an hour and 45 minutes. So if you're committed, you will get to where you need to get to.
Yeah, and I think that that hour ride, it builds character. So
Yep.
you're doing it, you're riding, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna get beat up now, but I'm driving an hour just to get beat up.
Right,
so
right.
we're coming in here, and I know it's worth it. I'm coming in here 2-3 times a week before tournaments, and so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is gonna be super hard.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna try to kill my body, try to not worried about the weight at all, and just trying to just kill my body, get like gas tank ready to go. Thursday is gonna be a little lighter, maybe not as much live or just like just drilling, whatever. Still pretty hard workout. And Friday is gonna be like the cutting weight day, so I'm gonna go light. Whatever I'm over, I'll probably be like 2-3 pounds over. Probably just put on sweats, do a little bit of drilling, nothing like too hard on the body, and then we head out to the tournament.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Nice. All right. So third question is, what challenges have you faced in your wrestling career, both on and off the mat, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think the biggest part for me is mentally. I think all my challenges, physically it's not gonna be a problem. I'm coming here, I'm working, my body's physically ready to go. I think mentally, when you look at it, you have all the things going on outside of wrestling, outside of the gym, that kind of, could take a toll on your mind. And, you're going to school, you're trying to manage between school and keep your grades up, try to get into college still, those things, it weighs on you.
Recruiting,
Yeah.
visiting schools. I mean,
Yeah, it's like
I don't know how
schedule.
Bo Bassett does it.
No, yeah, his
he
ridiculous.
did a post last night. He was somewhere else. I was like, what?
Yeah, he's like, and his list was ridiculous. He had like 60 schools. But yeah, I think, balancing schools with that, and that was the hardest thing for me before I committed, was, I'm trying to be the best at wrestling, and it's hard because I have to, be passing all my grades and studying for these tests, and that was mentally taking a toll, and you don't even realize it.
Right.
You're going through it, and eventually it's just like, wow, this is a lot, and you just start like,
Then you got to sleep.
yeah.
You got to get your nutrition in.
Yeah.
It's
So-
pretty deep.
Yeah, so it's like a big game, and there's so many little parts of it that all have to come together for you to,
Family life,
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah, that's exactly. You're
Yeah.
trying to,
And I know your parents, they're the greatest people in the
Yeah,
world, man.
yeah.
They support you.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, they always tell me, you have three main categories in your life. It's the social life, the school life, and the sports life. So you can only pick two.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're gonna have to sacrifice the social life.
Yep.
For grades in school.
Yep.
And I think that's like, the fear of missing out with your friends or whatever. But I know in the long run, those sacrifices are gonna pay off.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you can't bank on your friends anyway.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
Fourth question. How do you balance the demands of wrestling with academics and extracurricular activities? You kind of went into that already,
Yeah, a little bit.
So let's go to the fifth one.
Yep.
What advice would you give a younger wrestler who aspires to follow in your footsteps, and how do you see the future wrestling evolving in high school at the high school level?
Yeah, I would say, for the future kids that are looking to wrestle, you have to find a way to work your hardest and kill your body, but have fun doing it. If it's not fun, you're not going to want to do it. And they always say, the guy who enjoys running is going to run longer than the guy that loves the destination. So, you're finding the love in the training and the love in the pursuit and climbing the mountain. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is, I love the sport and I want to go to practice. I want to get better. And that's what's keeping me going the whole time. And I think that's the biggest thing for the youth.
Yeah. I mean, the love of the sport is the most important.
Yeah.
And you know what I don't get sometimes? Some guys don't love the sport and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
Imagine if they loved it.
Loved it, yeah.
Like the kid in your school, what's his name? Jalen? Or he's on your wrestling team. He comes here sometimes.
Is it Zach?
No.
No.
The black kid.
Oh, Caleb?
Caleb,
Yeah,
Caleb.
Caleb, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Caleb.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine that guy put everything into it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's starting to kind of turn it over now.
Is he?
Yeah, now that he
Oh,
committed
thank
to college,
goodness.
it was
Where's he going?
Brown University.
Is he Brown?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so he's a smart guy, yeah.
Yes.
So he's, I think, taking that pressure off, the schools, I think that was starting to get to him a little bit. So now you could see it in the room when he's practicing, this guy committed to college, he's loosening up a little bit, he's having fun with it again.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it's
Good
turning
for
a corner.
him.
Yeah.
Good for him. I remember he came in one time and he was a little late, and his father came in, and he says, "John, I'm gonna ask you something." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Where do you think kids went wrong?" Because he must have drove the same hour you drove,
Yeah.
and they had a little problem getting here.
Yeah.
And he says, I always thought it was the cell phone. He goes, "It's not." He says, "It's the slip-on shoes."
Yeah.
I started
Yeah,
rolling
yeah, his dad's
because
the best.
Caleb came in with his dad's shoes on.
Yeah.
because he had slip-on
Slip-ons,
shoes.
yeah.
He didn't even think about what he was going to
No,
do here.
yeah.
So his father, yo, Dad, can I get your shoes?
Yeah, his dad's the
I
best.
love that kid.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I got a question for you. Okay, so let's just talk about like Virginia Tech for a little bit,
Yeah.
okay? You had all these colleges. I mean, they were coming to your house.
Yeah.
I mean, they were coming here
work
watching
out, yeah.
you train.
Yeah.
You know, what made you pick Virginia Tech?
Yeah, I was like, I started off slow with the recruiting process, and once I started winning, they all started flooding in. I think made it a lot harder because you were trying to figure out who was really there for you, like who was investing in you as a person, and not just the wins or the rankings. So that was the hardest part for me, and I think I kind of started narrowing it down to where I see myself, and I picked little 2-3 schools from each division. So I had 2 Big Ten schools. I was like, all right, I would go there, and then I have 2 Ivy League schools. I would go there, and 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, whatever it was. And then from there, I started narrowing it down to like, am I going to want to, with the Ivy Leagues, it's hard. The academics is going to weigh on me, be a toll, and where I can get, the Virginia Tech, where they have the good wrestling, the good academics too. It's like a good balance. And I have people there already that, I've gone through it. So I have my friend Jimmy Mullen. He's being really successful right now. He's 14 in the country.
Is he really?
Yeah. So
Big Jimmy.
Yeah.
He's got a bar.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
He's working it good, and he keeps me updated. He sends videos. Got me really close to the coaches.
All right.
And I think they came to my house and did the visit, and you could feel it already.
Yeah.
Like, they just wanted me. They wanted to know my family. They wanted to get to know everything about me. And that kind of, it's for that to be your coaches. It feels like they're family already.
Well, because of your mom and you,
Yeah.
I got into their room.
Yeah.
And I put the coaches on the bar, and they loved it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're using it, but it's kind of hard to think of where it's going to fit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they're open to all that stuff. I tell them that I don't really do a lot of lifting, and their colleges are all really big on lifting, and they're supporting. They have those bars now in the room.
Yeah.
So, I go there down to train for a week or two, and I'm just working on the bar, and they're kind of working with me through it because that's what I do. It's not gonna. They don't want me to change my style, and
Right.
that's what I think. Investing in me as a person and my style. That's what kind of draw me to Virginia Tech.
Nice. Now I have a funny question. I don't know if it's funny, but at any weight class, right? If you can take yourself and stick in any weight class,
Yeah.
who would be the wrestler you would love to wrestle on any level? Now, most questions I ask are about, I'd love to wrestle Jordan Burroughs.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No, yeah. So I think any weight class I would have to say is he actually goes to Virginia Tech.
Does he?
I've never went with him, but I've looked up to him. He's a really good wrestler. So Bryce Andonian, he has this like crazy style. Everyone says he's like the best wrestler to watch in the NCAAs. He has all these throws, big moves. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like it would be fun wrestling him.
Yeah.
And we drilled a little bit, but we've never wrestled live. And I'm waiting for that one moment that we could wrestle. Yeah. So definitely I would say him, and watching him wrestle in the NCAA tournaments, and going to be the guy that steps right behind him because he's just graduating.
Okay.
So I'm coming in. Yeah.
And you coming in at his weight class?
No, he's like he was 157 this past year.
Oh, okay.
So he's a little bit lighter.
All right.
Yeah, but he gets up there in the off season, so we
Yeah.
could go a little bit. Yeah, but he has one of the best styles, and I just want to see how I would do against that. So.
And we never really like predicting the future or anything like that, but where do you see yourself in wrestling? Well, I don't know if everybody knows, but a lot of people know that we want to open up a big training center.
Yeah.
We want to open a 40, 50,000 square foot training center.
Yeah.
And we've made all these connections around the country for those people to be involved with that training center. We're about 50 acres. We've got some obstacle courses outside. We're going to have Muay Thai. We're going to have wrestling. We're going to have football, baseball. And you're going to walk in through the front door, and it's going to be separated with fencing.
Yeah.
Right? So everybody can see what's going on, you know? And one of the things that we want to do is, as we start funnel these kids up and they get out of college, that they have a home to come to train out of.
Yeah.
Not just train, but even work, be a part of that, because be a part of that Christian family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you get there and you're like, you know what, I love this so much. This is what I'm going to do for a living.
Yeah.
But it's not to the point where you're just making a little bit of money where you can't support your family and at some point send your kid to college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really want it to be a big deal, you
Yeah.
know? So where do you see yourself after college, getting through college, after college? You want to go for the Olympics? Do
Yeah.
you want to train people? Do you want to coach when you get done? Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, when I first committed there, you know, you're trying to find out what you're going to start with your lifestyle after wrestling. And I think when I asked myself that question, like what I want to do after, I think the answer is like I just want to stay with wrestling. Like I love the sport and I love giving back to it. But for my aspirations in college, I think I want to, you know, win the national tournament multiple times. And you know, I'm definitely after college get into the freestyle wrestling and just go. You know, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to do all that. And once my career's over with that and I can't do it anymore, I just want to stay. You know, probably coaching or find a job that I could, you know, give back to the wrestling community because you know, kind of paved my life for me. So you know, just see how much I can give back. And I think definitely the coaching path.
Yeah.
Maybe training, you know, physical training, but definitely stay in wrestling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we go, this is Ryan Burton. I want to thank you so much for, you know, coming on and just, you know, spilling your guts out here and, you know, talking to all the little kids and making sure like there is a future for wrestling. And if everybody does the same thing like you and, you know, this sport will just keep growing and growing and growing. And then besides the NIL money that maybe, because it's not a sport where you make a ton of money unless you own a big wrestling school. But at some point, maybe it'd be a professional wrestling, not the WWE or, you know, anything, you know?
Yeah, that, you know, obviously thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for all the young guys out there, you know, the wrestling's only going to get bigger. And, you know, we're training now and the opportunities are still, right now are huge. And, you know, it's just going to keep getting bigger. And I think you keep pursuing getting good at wrestling and, you know, you're going to pave your lifestyle. So,
Absolutely. And real quick, did you watch that movie Unstoppable yet?
I saw a little bit of it. I didn't get to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, watch that whole thing.
Yeah.
That guy, I have a connection with him.
Yeah.
And I'll probably out putting him on the bar in about a month or two.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When the movie calms down.
Yeah.
Because he has a bunch of Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah.
And we want to do a Guinness Book of World Record with him doing the push-ups and stuff on that bar.
Yeah, on the bar, that's awesome.
Yeah. So for all you guys out there, make sure you watch that movie. He's one of my new friends, Robles and Ryan Burton. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you. God bless you, brother.
Yep, God
All
bless.
right?